Hello, once again, welcome to the podcast Coaching for Impact. It's an honor to always be back, and it's great to have you. We'd like to thank each of those who have subscribed to our podcast, for those who have been able to watch us on YouTube, those who've been able to listen to us on Spotify, and many of the other social media handles. We want to say thank you so much. Asante. My name is Newton Siele, one of the panelists at the Coaching for Impact, and it's an honor to be here.
And I'm Nadini Ochieng. It's a pleasure, as always, to have you in these discussions. And I believe that if you are taking this serious, your life is already turning around. It is bit by bit, not the whole chunk. And you'll have the ship turned around. We are glad to have you. So, Newton, what is this about going with the current?
That's very interesting, Percy, and thank you for letting this cut out of the bag. Today's topic really is interesting because we are talking about going against gravity. How do you define what usually would be seen as the norm and what people tend to think is the right thing to do? So that's a very interesting topic. And for me, I think the way I'd like to start it is most of us are brought up being told, listen to the instructions.
Yes.
Follow what you have been told. Even in the exam, you're told, please read the following instructions and carefully answer the questions that follow. And it's true. I mean, when it comes to exams, you have to follow instructions. But in life, there are times that you really have to defy gravity. And that's a very important topic. We thought we'd like to sort of just unpack it. I know most of you have also asked us, I'm passionate about something, but I really don't think that, I don't know, my parents don't see it, or sometimes it could be my spouse, it could be my partner or my friend. We don't seem to be on the same page. What do I really need to do? And that's what I'd like to start with. That yes, for most of us, we tend to be on the comfort zone, and usually we are afraid to venture outside because the comfort zone is warm. Mm-hmm. You know, I know we're in July and it's quite a chilly weather, but the comfort zone is warm. You're assured that there's going to be a cup of tea, you'll get your nice mandazi, and when you think that I will venture into the unknown where I don't know whether I'm going to get warm, it might be freezing, I might get bitten, there are so many things that are uncertain. That fear in itself sometimes can be incapacitating, and you sort of then get stuck where you are. But when we talk about going against the current, it's really about also being able to be unafraid to move. And to me, that's important. It's not, it doesn't mean the absence of fear. It's just the courage to be able to step outside the comfort zone. Yes.
It's wonderful. You know, what comes to mind, I was reading about eagles. And apparently, when the young one is born, the nest is so warm and nicely done. And apparently, as I was reading the story, it went on to say that eagles train their children to face the future. And how they do that is that after you are fed and they feel you are ready, they start removing a feather each day. Each day the warmth is going, and roughly they are left with the thorns sticking out in that. So you are forced to be very uncomfortable. If they see you are not taking the move, pick you and throw you out of the nest. Then watch and see. If you are not catching it, they come and rescue you again. So, and I think that's the right definition. That sometimes it takes you diving into the unknown. Actually, Newton, for me, when you read about all the great men in the world, all the people who've done great innovations, they went through that. And as you said, fear was ever present. So then my question has always been, I have my fears, yes. Actually, for me, I'm a very calculated man. And at times I want to predict how it will be before I go out. But I realize you get stuck and you're not moving and you're not making decisions and you're not actually making any headway in life. And so I want to challenge us today that in case you were like me before, not actually before, I make steps in life, but I challenge the status quo. I have to face that fear and say, no, I have to go out. If you are in that particular space, this is the right topic for us. I know fear comes about because, as Newton said, the comfortable zone is okay. I feel like things are going on well. But there is a feeling I can achieve more. So there seems to be a conflict between my want to achieve more and the fear I face when I want to go out and achieve. There's is it that in the Proverbs that says that a lazy person always says there is a lion on the street. I'll not go out.
And that's a very good reason for me to stay where I am.
Yes, so there is a lion, and I will not go out today. Let me stay in and keep warm. But when we talk about fear, we need to understand that fear is always present, actually. In everything we do, there's fear. Actually, even when you're going to do a presentation for the work you love so much and you enjoy doing it, there is fear for you to go do that presentation.
And I guess that's why they say that courage, I'm repeating again, is not the absence of fear. And I want to pick on two stories that you've mentioned. Number one is on the eagle. And I really like that example because when the eagle drops the child, they know that there's a risk that is going to fall.
True.
But what has happened is that they've been able to move out of the comfort zone and they are now into the fear zone.
Yes.
And as we said before, they can be able to get into the learning zone. So many of us get stuck at the comfort zone. And we are not in any way saying that you also take in uncalculated risks.
Very true.
However, for you to be able to build that muscle of learning, you have to be able to venture out. That's very important. Few people that have succeeded, very few people that have succeeded didn't take any risks. Majority actually took risks, even when they didn't know sometimes what the return is going to be.
Very true.
And for most of us, when we talk about trying to defy gravity also, it's just going against what is the grain, what the world is telling you today. Our previous episode, we talked about purpose, and we talked about finding your why and your mission statement. Sometimes your purpose and your mission statement will be something so clear and singular to you, but other people might not see it. But that doesn't mean that you sit back, as you said, and you're afraid that, I will not go because there's a lion that's going to be biting me. I think it's important. And I also speak about my life because I must say that, being able to venture out, most of us, for example, get very comfortable where we were born. I mean, you'll try, go to school, go out, but you just want to come back and work where you were born. And sometimes you have to venture. And you keep asking yourself, but where do I go? I don't know anybody. I don't have any relatives. I'm going to struggle. And for most of us, anyway, that came into Nairobi many, many years ago, it was a risk that you took. You didn't know how it was going to turn out. But if you didn't take that risk and go against gravity, you would not definitely have been able to make it. What is it that for you rings a bell on this?
I think for me, when I talk about this, is I come from a family that, it is right in the village, in the Busia, and at times, you can be comfortable, say, I'll be a farmer here, there's a little land I can do here. But then you realize when all of us are farming, then you harvest, and everyone has the same product in the marketplace. And now what you thought you'd get, you can't get it. And so that forces you to think outside the box. Should I stay in this particular place or should I move? But when we talk about conquering fear, I think if there is a perfect story in the Bible is in the book of 2 Chronicles chapter number 7 about the 4 lepers. That number 1, they refused to identify themselves with the leprosy they had. So I know I am afraid, but I should not identify myself with that, because if I identify with fear, it basically means I'll never take that particular step to go out. And number 2, I think for them, they did an introspection and asked themselves very pertinent questions, because anyway, we are not getting food anyway. Or if we go inside, we will die. Stay here, we are still dying. Why not take the risk and go to the other side?
And step out.
And let me tell you, Newton, that particular section of the scripture is the day I gave my life to Christ. The reason it appealed to me is because he spoke about the situations I was facing in life. And I realized that if I don't take risk and go, then I'm stuck in the situation I'm in. It will never change. What about venturing out? It could be different. And actually, that's what those 4 lepers says. They may kill us anyway. We are dying here anyway. And we still die when we go out. But they may also spare us and we may have supply. That's a mentality. I
think for me, what really rings a bell is COVID. Because before COVID, people were very comfortable. Some people were 100% certain that they are in the right place, career-wise, job-wise. And then COVID happened. And COVID did not spare anybody. I think 100% everybody was affected by COVID. But one thing that COVID taught us also is that those who are daring to venture out are also likely to be able to survive.
Very true.
Because those that remain comfortable suffered the most. And of course, I think what better example than the fact that even the scientists that I must say were daring to even try on new formulations. You know, we talk about this mRNA vaccine, which really ended up also saving quite millions of lives. We would never forget that was some people not daring, had they stayed the normal path, had they stayed where you would say is the comfort zone, we probably would have suffered even much more with COVID. And COVID can be anything in life.
Yeah,
really. It's these things that suddenly come up and you have to face it. Yeah. And sometimes
Which
you have to be
every day, actually.
Yes, and sometimes you have to be daring enough to be able to step out, as I said, into the fear zone, because the fear zone, you don't know what's going to happen.
Very true.
You take every precaution to protect yourself, but you don't know what's going to happen. You might actually fall down. You might bite the dust, as we like to say. But only then are you able to then move into the learning zone where you take in those lessons and become much better. That to me, I think is what really takes home that message about being able to be resilient, but enough to venture out from the COVID experience.
Now, there's someone, Newton, who is completely paralyzed by fear. Since COVID happened, actually, I can talk from a church perspective. There are people who've never stepped in church. Actually, how many years are those? And there's someone actually who was a breadwinner. So when the job went, actually they have been stuck up to now, and they don't know where to go. What would you tell such a person?
So we usually say that there is no greater obstacle than yourself. And I think it's very important to be introspective. Look at yourself and really be open enough to say, you know what, the truth is, there's no barrier. I am the barrier. And unless I venture out, I will not be able to make it. And if you look at the circumstances, where you are is already worse anyway. So you lose nothing by venturing and trying out something. And I must say, speaking to what you're saying earlier about people who have been breadwinners, I saw people that get doing things that they never knew they would. You remember during COVID-19, some people whose jobs were shut ended up having to sell vegetables and supplying people.
Yeah,
and they ended up developing, in fact, not just commercial streams and business-to-business ideas that today have really thrived. They are now supplying people online. Some online businesses grew to become so big. But they did this because they were daring enough to step out of that comfort zone. And so I would really challenge anybody that, look at your circumstances. You're already worse off anyway. So you cannot, we normally say when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you do is stop digging. But in this case, the stopping digging is stop being afraid to venture out. And you have to be honest and brutally honest enough with yourself to say, you know what, I need to do something. Step out of that comfort zone. And yes, there is no guarantee, but at least by taking that first step, you begin to change your life, and you begin to chart a new path.
So basically what Newton, you're saying is that when you go about today, you'll hear people, everyone is talking about the government, everyone is talking about the system, Caesar, and the taxes. But basically what we are saying here is that instead of looking outside, you're supposed to be looking inside, in that there are still possibilities around you. It's only that you are not opening your eyes to see. I came across one definition of education that really amazed me, because the definition said this, that the reason I went to school is to finally say that now I understand. So it was not for you to get a job, but just to say, now I understand. Because there are people who have not gone to school who are functioning and doing well, basically in life. They do things. And actually, even after going to school, you find there are things you're still doing today that those people are doing. It's only they didn't have understanding. But now you have an understanding of the situation. So it basically means that in every place that I want to step out, first of all is understanding myself first. I look at myself and say, okay, this is me. This is where I am. These are the steps I can take. This is how I can challenge this. So that is the only way you're able to face the obstacle. Not relying on how your neighbor did it. Now, unfortunately, in Africa, Newton, I know you are witness to this. If you work in pharmaceuticals and you can tell that there are 10 chemists on a street of less than 50 meters because you are copying the other one, they are making it, so you run. And you want to do the same thing. Now you realize you're not passionate about it.
No, it's true.
Yeah, so you end up actually finding that you'll make losses because you're not prepared for it. You don't know what the other person has achieved academically for them to be able to run the business. You are just doing it for the sake of money. So when we talk about fear, Newton, for me, I look at it this way, that fear comes because we don't trust in what we have. How do I get to trust in what I have? Number one, I must be able to analyze my life and analyze and know, do I have the right skill to do what I want to pursue? Do I have the right information about what I want to pursue? And who else should give me more information about this? I can't base my decision on one person. I need to get more people to give me information on how I can make change, how I can move forward, and leave alone that. What are the concrete action steps? Because Newton, we can talk about conquering fear, but it can only be a talk. If there is no action steps that I need to take every morning, how is my today changing when it comes to fear? As we are saying, and learning, as we talk about learning, how much have I gained today concerning that? What do I understand about my fears? Because we all have fears, because we come from different families.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I like what you said about concrete actions. And, for those of us who are listening on the podcast, I must say for me, this was a defining word. Because usually we talk about many things that we have planned, but you never get to ask yourself, what are the specific concrete actions that I have taken? And on this topic for today, defying gravity, I think one of the greatest things, and I remember reading one author who said, I'll just paraphrase, and they said that life was never about getting to the grave or getting to the casket with a fully preserved, nice, neatly kept body. Because most people assume that that's the case. But, you should be getting there thoroughly beaten, having not only experimented, but really defied gravity, so to put it, in terms of the things that you've done. That yes, this physical body, which we know anyway is headed to the grave, should not necessarily be the one reason that holds you back. That I want to stay this particular path. I want to do what other people expect me to do. Defying gravity is about being unafraid, as we said. And I think for the young people, what I want to tell them, that we live in a world today that your success is likely to be defined by how many times you defy gravity. And the people, as you said, it's not just even historically what we see has happened in the past, but the future, the innovations, the technologies, the people who are now breaking ground, it's really because they are willing to defy gravity. They're not going to be defined by what other people are saying. And that's extremely important. What's the flip side? And I think I'll want to link it to what we said earlier in our podcast, is that you're going to be this person who gets to work, as we said, you finish your school, maybe graduate, you begin working at the age of 24, and you do it until you're 55, you get your golden clock, you get a plaque, you get a cake, you're told, we wish you happy retirement, then you realize that you never actually tried to risk anything, and that would be sad. For me, that would be the saddest day, because I think, as you had put it earlier also, your energy levels do not get any stronger. If anything, they actually get much more weaker. You're incapable at a late stage in life to be able to do these things that we are talking about in terms of defying gravity, which would be sad. Yeah, which would be sad.
When we talk of learnings, I remember when I was a child, we were told mtoto akililia wembe,
Mpe.
And the effect of that, you kind of get cut and you feel the pain, but you learn from that. And I think one of the things about the misconception about life is that pain is negative, Newton. So when we talk about fears, I think it's important to tackle the issue of pain. And at times we feel like, I'm afraid because it's going to be painful. I'm afraid because maybe the family may suffer. But at times it takes little suffering for the better tomorrow. That's my take. So for me, I feel even as we talk about these learnings, it should be the lessons I pick from the many times I fail. We like to pick the successes, not the failing. And yet the failing
forward, isn't it?
Yes, the failing forward informs actually that good thing that is going to become later on. So as we talk of learnings in these fears, as we fear to fail, my charge would be is that we should look at the bigger picture and how that bigger picture outweighs the pain we are going through.
At the moment.
Yes, at the moment. Because
I couldn't agree more, because I think even as we wrap up and give our audience what is a take home, for me, I like to say, even as you list down the successes that you have, ask yourself also, how many times have you defied gravity? How many times have you gone against the grain? Where have you really been daring enough? And if your list is empty, then you need to really reflect and ask yourself, am I too comfortable? You know, am I stuck in my comfort zone? Have I put my tent in my comfort zone? Because the only evidence you have that you have not put your tent in your comfort zone is the number of times you're daring. And I agree with you, the number of times you've even failed forward and the lessons you've learned from that failure. That would really be my take-home message.
Very true.
Yeah.
I think for me, my take-home today is that the value of pain. In that pain is important in our lives, and we should always value it and make sure when we encounter it, it pushes us to fall forward, as Newton said. Thank you for joining us today on this podcast. Please take time, communicate, talk to us, and give us the questions you would want us to tackle. Please send topics and suggest topics, and we would be glad to engage you. In case you're stuck in life, reach out. We are here. We are willing to help. Coaching for Impact, the place to be. Bye-bye.
Bye.